إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد. I welcome you all to this seminar or two-day intensive seminar that is being organized by the Faculty of Hadith of Toronto in cooperation with the Ahle-Hadith Society of Canada on the topic of introduction to the 6 books of Hadith and their authors' methodologies. The 6 books of Hadith being Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, Sunan Abi Dawud, at-Tirmidhi, Sunan an-Nasai and Sunan Ibn Majah, which is being organized in Imam Bukhari Center located in the city of Milton, which is part of the Greater Toronto area in Canada, on Saturday and Sunday, August 13th and 14th, from 10 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. daily on these 2 days. As some of you might know, that the books that have compiled the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam are several in number, and these books have not followed the same the same structure in organizing these ahadith. Rather, they differ from book to book. The way to organize these ahadith in these books differ from book to book. And in these lectures or in these seminar, we will study the way some of the authors of these books have organized the ahadith in their books, namely the 6 books of hadith. The 6 books of hadith, which are from the most important and well-known books of the Muslims. And the purpose of studying these 6 books of hadith and knowing their author's methodology is that a person, a student of knowledge, is not able to properly benefit from these books unless he knows the author's methodology. Before he opens these books, he must know what he will find in these books. He should know what he will not find in these books. He should have some idea regarding these books. For example, a person who wants to search for Ahrar of the Sahaba, the sayings of the Sahaba. So if he were to refer to Sunan Abi Dawud, for example, or at-Tirmidhi, he will not find Ahrar of the Sahaba. There are other books that have compiled Ahrar of the Sahaba. So a student of knowledge, it is very important for him to know the methodologies of the authors of these books, to know what he will find in these books and what he will not find, so that he can properly benefit from these books. So if we were to come to the 6 books of hadith, then there is no doubt that the most important of these books is which book? Sahih al-Bukhari. The most important of these 6 books of hadith, the first of them is Sahih al-Bukhari, the book of Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullahu ta'ala. So this is the book that we will start our seminar with, inshallah. Before we study this book, it is befitting upon us to present a brief biography of this great Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah. And in reality, it is not possible for someone to present a biography of these great A'immah in a few minutes or even in a few hours. This requires several days. The scholars of Islam have written books specifically on the biographies of these Imams. Several scholars have written books on the biography of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah alone. Some of these books are in hundreds of pages or several volumes. So it is not possible that we can mention everything related to this great Imam in a few minutes or even in a few hours. And these Imams were not just Imams in the science of Hadith. They were not just Muhaddithin. They were Imams in all fields of the religion, in all facets of life. They were Imams in Hadith. They were Imams in fiqh. They were Imams in their righteousness and in their piety. Various aspects of lives can be discussed regarding these Imams and the stories of these Imams, the struggles they went through to preserve this religion, and their righteousness and piety and truthfulness. It has no bounds. But inshallah, we will try to mention a summarized biography in which we will focus on specific aspects that relate to this seminar. Meaning that we will focus on specific topics by which we can understand how Imam Bukhari rahimahullah compiled and combined the book, his book Sahih al-Bukhari. So we start off by saying that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, as you can see in the slide in front of you, his name, who from here knows his name? None.
Even before reading that, I had it memorized because I read it.
Ahsantum. Now,
Abu Abdullah Muhammad bin Ismail bin Ibrahim bin Mughira bin Bardisba al-Ju'afi al-Bukhari.
Ahsantum. Jazakumullah khairan. His name is Muhammad. His kunya is Abu Abdullah. Muhammad ibn Ismail ibn Ibrahim ibn al-Mughira ibn Bardisba al-Ju'afi mawlahum al-Bukhari. So as you can see that four names, Muhammad ibn Ismail ibn Ibrahim ibn al-Mughira, all of these names are Arabic Islamic names. Then we find Bardisba, who was from the great grandfathers of Imam al-Bukhari. He was a non-Muslim. He was upon the religion of the Majus, the fire worshippers that are found in the area of Iran and the countries that are to the east of Iran. So the person who accepted Islam from this family was al-Mughira, the great grandfather of Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah. Al-Mughira, he was the one who accepted Islam. And he accepted Islam upon the da'wah of a person called Al-Yaman al-Ju'fi. The person upon which he accepted Islam, his name was Al-Yaman al-Ju'fi. He was from the tribe of al-Ju'fi. And for that reason, Imam al-Bukhari is called al-Ju'fi mawlahum. Meaning that Imam Bukhari is not an Arab from this tribe. He is not an Arab from this tribe. Rather, he or his grandfathers were from the freed slaves, and those who freed or those who accepted Islam upon whose hands were from this tribe. the wala ascription to a tribe, it can be for three reasons. Ascription to a tribe can be for three reasons. One is the example we have here, that a non-Muslim accepts Islam by the dawah of this person, so he's ascribed to his tribe, which is called wala Islam, ascription by way of Islam. The other is wala al-itq, which is that one was a slave and the person of this tribe freed him, so he's ascribed to the person who to the tribe of the person who freed him, to the tribe of the person who freed him. And the third is called wala al-hilf, wala al-hilf, which is that some of the tribes were given protection and security from other tribes who used to rule the area. So those tribes also ascribed to the tribe that gave security and protection to them. So Imam Bukhari, as we said, he's not an Arab from the tribe of al-Ju'fi, rather his great grandfather al-Mughira accepted Islam on the hand of a person who was part or from this tribe of al-Ju'fi, and that's why he's ascribed to him al-Ju'fi mawlahum. And as far as al-Bukhari, then this is the city that Imam Bukhari was born in, Bukhara. And this is one of the cities, and this is one of the cities of the area which is known as Ma Wara an-Nahar. In Islamic history, you will find that there are several muhaddithin and scholars who were from this area, Ma Wara an-Nahar. Those brothers from amongst us who understand Arabic, they can translate this name easily by meaning that which is behind the river, that which is behind the river. So what river are we talking about? As you can see in the map in front of you, there are two rivers that run through Central East Asia, two great rivers. One is called Sayhun. One is called Sayhun and the other is called Jayhun. Sayhun and Jayhun. In today's terminology, or in our times, Sayhun is known as Sir Darya. Sir Darya. And the brothers amongst us who are from the countries of the the subcontinent of India and Pakistan or Iran and those countries, they understand Darya to mean river. Darya to mean river. Sir Darya. And Jayhun is called Amu Darya. This is the present names of these rivers, Sir Darya and Amu Darya. So Sir Darya is the river that is to the west. If you can see a blue line, which is basically the border today between Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. The blue line, the great river, that is basically a border. That is Sir Darya or Sayhun. And the blue river to the east, which falls in Kazakhstan, that is Jayhun, Amu Darya. So the area between these two rivers is called Ma Wara an-Nahar. The area between Sayhun and Jayhun is called Ma Wara an-Nahar. And today, as you can see, it is split up between three countries: Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan. And Bukhara today falls in the country of Uzbekistan. It is a city from the cities of the country of Uzbekistan. Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, he was born in the year 194 after the migration of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Mecca to Medina, 194 Hijri. And he was brought up in a righteous environment. So Imam Bukhari rahimullah was born in the year 194 Hijri, and he was brought up in a righteous environment. His father was from the scholars of Hadith. His father was from the scholars of Hadith. And Imam Bukhari himself has written a biography of his father in his book at-Tarikh al-Kabir, that we'll mention inshallah when we speak about the books of Imam al-Bukhari. Imam Bukhari has a great book in which he has written the biographies of the narrators of Hadith. In this book he has written the biography of his own father, And this father, who was from the scholars of Hadith, he is the one who raised Imam al-Bukhari from a young age to love Hadith and his people, and to seek the knowledge of Hadith. And we have a story here that gives great proof to the status that Imam Bukhari reached in his young age. The status that he reached in this knowledge of Hadith and his memorization at a young age. From the scholars or shuyukh of Imam al-Bukhari, from his teachers, is Imam al-Dakhili rahimahullah. Imam al-Dakhili. When Imam Bukhari was only 11 years of age, how old? Only 11 years of age. Today, in our times, a child who's 11 years of age, we don't give him any importance. We don't think him to be of any value. But Imam Bukhari, when he was only 11 years of age, he heard this teacher of his, Imam al-Dakhili, narrating Hadith. He found him in a sitting of Hadith, narrating Hadith upon his students. So in one of the Hadith, he said, in his chain of narration, an Ibrahim and Abi Subay, and Ibrahim and Abi Subay. So Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, when he is 11 years of age, he told him that you have verily mistaken. The students around the Shaykh, they found that extremely surprising, that an 11-year-old kid is correcting this great muhaddith. So they asked him, or the Shaykh rahimahullah Dakhili, al-Imam al-Dakhili asked him, if it is not an Ibrahim and Abi Subay, then what is the right narration? Imam Bukhari, he said that it is rather Ibrahim and Zubair ibn Ali. It is Ibrahim and Zubair ibn Ali. That Ibrahim narrates on Zubair ibn Ali and he does not narrate on Abi Subay. So the Shaykh or the Imam al-Dakhili rahimahullah, he entered his house, he referred back to his scrolls, and he found the hadith exactly as Imam Bukhari rahimahullah had informed him. So he came back to his majlis, to his sitting, and rather than telling him that he has been correct, he asked him how is the narration, how is the true narration. So he informed him that it is Ibrahim and Zubair ibn Ali. So he said, verily you have spoken the truth. Verily you have spoken the truth. So this story shows the great level in his precision and memorization that Imam Bukhari reached, and he was only 11 years of age. After seeking knowledge in his city of Bukhara, and this is from the way of the muhaddithun, from the way of the Ahle-Hadith, is that they will seek knowledge from the city that they lived in, and they would not travel in seeking knowledge or seeking hadith except that they have learned and studied from the shuyukh of their city and their residence. Unless they have heard from the muhaddithin of their area, they would not travel to another area. So when Imam Bukhari learned from the scholars of his area, he traveled to other areas to hear and collect hadith. So the first travel he did was for Hajj, to make Hajj with his mother and his brother. He left from Bukhara to Mecca to make Hajj with his mother and his brother. And this was in the year 210 after the Hijrah. 210 after the Hijrah. So we just said he was born in 194 and he left for Hajj in 210. So how old was he? He was 16 years of age. He was 16 years of age. So before 16 years of age, he had heard the hadith from the muhaddithin of Bukhara and that area. And then he left for Hajj to Al-Hijaz, to Mecca, with his mother and his brother. And in his travel to Hajj, he passed through the great cities that fell on the way, that were filled with muhaddithin and scholars of hadith at that time. So this is a map, as you can see, of the Rihla, the travel of Imam al-Bukhari in search of hadith and in collection of hadith. This is al-Bukhara. This is Bukhara, where Imam Bukhari was born, as we said. He left for Hajj. He sought hadith in the great cities of the area of Ma Wara al-Nahar and the area after it, which is Khurasan. Khurasan was a great area from the areas of the Muslims of past times. Today, it is just a province from the provinces of the country of Iran, a small province. But in past times, this great area was called Khurasan. And in that you can see great cities of knowledge that the muhaddithin lived in. From them, Tirmidhi, where Imam Tirmidhi is from. From them, Maro. The muhaddithin of this area are called al-Marwazi. Al-Marwazi. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal is called al-Marwazi because he was originally from Maro. From the area is Balkh. The muhaddithin of this area, this city are called al-Balkhi. So he traveled and he sought knowledge from the muhaddithin of the city, where he reached one of the great cities of Khurasan, Nisapur, which is also today present in Iran with the same name, but the people of Farisiya, they call it Nishapur. The Arab, they say Nisabur. They don't have pa in their language. But in Farisiya, they have pa, which is basically ba, but with 3 dots at the bottom. It is like tha, the 3 dots at the top, which are inverted. It is pa. And they don't say sin, they say sheen. So it's Nishapur. So, and this was the city, as we will mention inshallah later on, this was the city of Imam Muslim, Nisabur. So he sought knowledge from the ulama and the scholars of hadith of this area. Then he entered Qazvin in Iran, and Rai and Hamdan, great areas that were filled with muhaddithin at that time. Rai today is called, who knows? Huh? Its name is Tehran. It is the capital of Iran. And from these great muhaddith and scholars of hadith and Ahl Sunnah came about. And those who ascribe to this city, they are called Ar-Razi. Ar-Razi. Such as Abu Zur'a Ar-Razi and Abu Hatim Ar-Razi. So they were from Ar-Rai, which is called Tehran, yani the capital of Iran today. After he sought knowledge from the scholars of this area, he entered Iraq, which was in his time the capital of the Islamic Caliphate. He lived in the era of the Abbasids, and their capital was a city called Baghdad, which they had established. And the proper name of this city is Darussalam. Darussalam, the place or the city of peace. So he entered this great city of Baghdad and sought knowledge from the ulama of Baghdad. Then he entered various other great cities of Iraq, such as Al-Kufa and Al-Basra and Wasit. Entered all these cities, learning from the scholars of hadith in this area. Then he traveled to al-Hijaz, where he made his Hajj pilgrimage in Mecca, from where he went to al-Madinah and sought knowledge from the ulama of al-Hijaz. After which he went north, where he entered the great country of Ash-Sham, or the area of Ash-Sham, which is split up today in several countries such as Syria and Lebanon and Jordan and Palestine. So he entered Sham, and the capital of Sham was Damascus. He sought knowledge from the scholars of these cities, Baytul Maqdis in Palestine, Asqalan, where Hafiz ibn Hajar Asqalani is from. To the point he went all the way north, traveling to the furthermost border of the Islamic Caliphate at that time. This is the border after which the Roman Empire started. In this area the Romans lived, the Christian Romans. This was the border area of the Islamic nation. And today this area of the Romans is known as what country? Turkey. This area of the Romans is known as Turkey. So he reached until the borders of Turkey, seeking knowledge from the scholars of Hadith that lived in these areas. He also entered Al-Fustat here. And Fustat is the name of what country? Misr, Egypt. And his capital, Al-Qahira, was called Al-Fustat. So he entered this area and also studied Hadith from the scholars of this Hadith. So you can see the vast travels of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah from Bukhara, traveling thousands of kilometers in seeking the knowledge of Hadith. And I want to emphasize that this was at a time where there were no planes, and there were no trains, and there were no cars. Rather, the wheel was not invented. So there were no carts. This was all done on foot or on top of animals such as camels, etc. And if you go down, some of the scholars have tried to add up the kilometers that he traveled in seeking the knowledge of Hadith. And I say this is not exact numbers, this is just something to give an idea, a rough estimate. So in the area of Khurasan, he traveled almost 1500 kilometers. In the area of Iran, he traveled almost 1700 kilometers. In the area of Iraq, he traveled almost 1000 kilometers. In the area of Hijaz, Makkah al-Madinah, he traveled almost more than 2000 kilometers to reach it. In Misr, he traveled 2500 kilometers. In Sham and the border areas of the Roman nation, he traveled almost 3000 kilometers in order to reach it. So we mention this to tell the people and to show that these books and these ahadith did not reach us with ease. It didn't just come about. The scholars of hadith sacrificed everything, and they were created for this reason. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala created them for this reason, and they sacrificed everything in order to preserve the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is just a brief summary of the travels of Imam al-Bukhari, and he has several stories that can be mentioned that show the struggles that he went through in these travels. And we brought these pictures because, as it is said in English, that a picture is worth 1,000 words. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So as we said, he left for Hajj. He left for Hajj when he was 16 years of age. After he made Hajj in Mecca, he sought the permission of his mother to remain in Mecca to seek the knowledge of hadith. So she granted him permission. And his mother and his brother returned to Bukhara. And he remained in Mecca. Then he traveled to Medina and the countries that we mentioned: Sham, Misr, Nisabur, Al-Jazira, Al-Basra, Al-Kufa, Baghdad, Wasid, Maro, Ray, Balkh, wa ghayriha. Imam Al-Khatib Al-Baghdadi said that رحل في طلب العلم إلى سائر محدثي الأمصار. He did not leave a city that was known to contain the ilm al-hadith, that was known to contain the scholars of hadith, except that he traveled to it. Hearing from them their hadith, memorizing it and compiling it and combining it. And in this great travels of Imam al-Bukhari, he heard from the great muhaddithin and shuyukh who lived at that time. And he himself mentioned that I have heard hadith and sought knowledge from more than how many shuyukh, from how many teachers? From more than 1,000 shuyukh. I have sought knowledge and heard hadith from more than 1,000 shuyukh. Who from us today, with the abundance of various means that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala has blessed us with, where we can seek knowledge or connect to the scholars while we are sitting in this country, far away from them. Even with that, we might not reach a few measly percentage from 1,000 shuyukh. Imam Bukhari heard hadith and sought knowledge from more than 1,000 shuyukh, from more than 1,000 scholars who were from the greats and the major scholars of the Islamic Ummah. And he said that all of these 1,000 plus shuyukh and scholars used to say that al-imanu qawlun wa amalun yazidu wa yanqus. That iman, faith, is speech and action. It is not just belief in the hearts, i'tiqad, and not just speech. Rather, it is a combination of belief, i'tiqad in the hearts, and speech and actions. And it increases and it decreases, which is the creed of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, in opposition to various misguided sects who were deviated in this aspect. Some of them said that iman is just belief in the heart. Some of them said iman is just statements by the tongue. Some of them said iman is something constant. It doesn't increase nor does it decrease. So these 1,000 plus scholars that he sought knowledge from and sought hadith from, all of them were from the scholars of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. They were from the scholars of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. None of them were from the people of innovation and misguidance. And from the 1,000 plus scholars that he heard hadith from, did he narrate hadith upon them in his book as-Sahih? Did he narrate hadith on all of them? No. He narrated hadith on only a few, select few of them in Sahih al-Bukhari. Because as it will come that his condition and his standard for narrating hadith in his book is extremely high. So even though these scholars were from the scholars of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah and they had righteous integrity in this religion, he only selected a very few of them to narrate hadith upon. And from the most famous of the shuyukh and teachers of Imam al-Bukhari is al-Imam al-Hafiz Ali ibn al-Madini, rahimahullah. Ali ibn al-Madini, who passed away in the year 234. And he is known, his laqab, he is known as Imam al-Ilal. Imam al-Ilal, the one who was an imam in knowing the hidden defects of hadith. A hadith in its apparent state, a chain of narration, one can, maybe who is not well versed in this science, deem it to be authentic. But people or scholars like Imam Ali ibn al-Madini rahimahullah used to know the hidden defects of these hadiths, and these hidden defects are not known except except by the great scholars of hadith, from whose leaders was Imam Ali ibn al-Madini. And Imam Nasai rahimahullah told about Ali ibn al-Madini that كَأَنَّمَا خُلِقَ Ali ibn al-Madini lil hadith. as if Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala created Ali ibn al-Madini just for the science of hadith. Just for the science of hadith. Imam Bukhari sought knowledge from this great Imam, and he learned the hidden defects of hadith from this great Imam. And he used to say a very famous saying about Ali ibn al-Madini. He used to say a very famous saying about his teacher and Shaykh al-Imam al-Hafiz Ali ibn al-Madini. He used to say, مَسْتَصْغَرْتُ نَفْسِي عِنْدَ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا عِنْدَ Ali ibn al-Madini. That I did not deem myself less in knowledge, little in knowledge compared to anybody except Ali ibn al-Madini. That everyone who I sought knowledge from, Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah was more knowledgeable than them, except for Ali ibn al-Madini. I thought of my knowledge to be less in comparison to his knowledge. And even with that, when this statement of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah reached Imam Ali ibn al-Madini rahimahullah, he said, دَعُوهُ فَإِنَّهُ لَمْ يَرَ مِثْلَ نَفْسِهِ. Even with this, Imam Ali ibn al-Madini said, when it reached him, said, leave it off. For verily Imam Bukhari in his lifetime did not see anyone more knowledgeable than him. His teacher is saying this about his student, that Imam Bukhari has not seen with his two eyes in his lifetime anyone more knowledgeable than himself. And from his scholars, from his great and main scholars is Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. Imam Bukhari sought the knowledge of hadith from Imam Ahmad, who is known as Imam Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah. And Yahya ibn Ma'in, who is known as Imam al-Jarhi wa Ta'dil. Yahya ibn Ma'in, he is known as the Imam al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, yani praising and criticizing narrators of hadith. So he sought knowledge from these great Imams who used to be pointed towards for this knowledge. There was no one higher than Yahya ibn Ma'in rahimahullah in knowledge of narrators of hadith and in praising and criticizing them. There was no one more knowledgeable than Ali ibn al-Madini in knowing the hidden defects of hadith. So these were the great Imams and scholars, from a very few of them that Imam Bukhari studied with. From them is also Ishaq ibn Rahuya rahimahullah, the great Imam Hafiz, the faqih, who had a madhab in fiqh that used to be followed. The madhahib al-fiqhiyya, the schools of thought in jurisprudence, are not just the four madhahib that are known today. These great scholars had their own madhab that used to be followed. But sadly, for various political and other reasons, only these four schools of thought remained. Imam Ishaq ibn Rahuya had a madhab that used to be followed during the time of the Salaf. But it finished and it did not reach our times. And as a benefit, Rahuya, one can say Rahaway and can say Rahuya. Rahaway and Rahuya. Both are permissible, but the people of Lugha, the Arabic language, they say Rahaway. But the scholars of Hadith, they say Rahuya. The scholars of Hadith, they say Rahuya. And the scholars of the Arabic language, they say Rahaway. As far as Imam Bukhari rahimahullah's memorization, or should we stop, take a break?
I would say we'll cover up the first part in the session.
One more question. Remember when you went to Yemen to meet Abdul Razak al-Sanani?
No.
Is that the only place that Bukhari did not go to? Yemen?
He did not travel to Yemen. He did not travel to Yemen.
So if you didn't see Abdul Razak al-Sanani, how would you know if he's on his level?
How would who know?
Imam Bukhari.
Yeah.
If you didn't go to Yemen, like
Yeah.
Imam Ahmed,
Yeah.
how would you know that Abdul Razak al-Sanani was that because he was older than him, wasn't he?
Yeah, he passed away in the year 211. He passed away when Imam Bukhari was in 194, 211. 17 years of age. Yeah, and when he left for Hajj, basically, with his mother. And Imam Ahmad didn't just meet Abdul Razzaq al-San'ani in Yemen, he met him in Mecca. Him and Yahya ibn Ma'in, both of them met him in Mecca. And after learning hadith from him, actually they left for Hajj from Baghdad. Just like Imam Abdul Razzaq al-San'ani left for Hajj from Yemen. And Imam Bukhari made the intention, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal made the intention that after Hajj we will travel to Imam Abdul Razzaq al-San'ani to hear hadith from him in Yemen. So it occurred that they met him in Mecca, in Hajj. And he heard what he wanted to hear from him. But the way of the muhaddithin was that if they made an intention upon something to seek knowledge, they would not turn back from it. So Imam Ahmad said, I'm not pleased that I changed my intention. So even after hearing hadith from him in Mecca, he traveled to Yemen to hear hadith from him in Yemen.
So how did these sectors start then? You know, the origin was Sahaba.
Yeah.
Prophet Muhammad
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
I know like there were some differences among the Sahaba too, right?
Yeah.
But how did it grow so significantly that, you know, like today we see
Understood.
huge difference?
Understood. I mean, we don't want to divert from the topic a lot. This is a question related to i'tiqad and belief. But in summary, the Sahaba, Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, they were all united on the creed that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam left them upon. That Allah tabarak wa ta'ala revealed in his book, the revelation in his book, and upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his sunnah. They had no differing in creed. But during the time of the Sahaba, after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, various misguided sects arose, especially in countries that were far away from Mecca or from Al-Madinah, especially in the countries that were where Islam newly spread, such as the countries of Faris in Iran and after them. So in these countries, people, due to their ignorance, they came up with new ideas, and the Sahaba, these ideas reached them in their lifetime, and they refuted them, and they said that Islam is free from these ideas. But for various political and other reasons, these groups continued to thrive, and they kept on splitting until we see the result in our times. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from his signs of his prophethood, he informed us that this will happen. He informed us that this will happen. He said that the Jews split into 71 sects, and the Christians split into 72 sects, and this nation, the Muslims, will split into 73 sects. All of them are misguided in the hellfire except for one. And who are these one? They are upon that which the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his Sahaba were upon. So this is from the science of prophethood that Allah Tabaraka Ta'ala informed him with, from the knowledge of the unseen, that this will happen. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam guided us to the right path, how to save ourselves from these sects. Now, regarding the memorization of Imam al-Bukhari, then there are countless, several stories and instances that can be mentioned. From them is Imam Bukhari's statement that أحفظ 100,000 حديث صحيح وأحفظ 200,000 حديث غير صحيح. That I memorize, or in my memory are how many? 100,000 authentic ahadith. 100,000 authentic ahadith. And in my memory I have memorized 200,000 non-authentic ahadith. Non-authentic ahadith. There are 2 points here. First is that, of course, the ahadith, they are not in this number, 100,000. Rather, Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, it is famous upon him that he said, أحفظ ألف hadith, yani a million hadith. Are ahadith million in number? No, they do not even reach close to this number. Rather, they do not reach 100,000 hadith. The muhaddithun, when they say hadith, they mean isnad. They mean isnad. So you can have a hadith with the same word. You can have a hadith with the same word, such as the hadith, Man kadhiba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar. that the one who intentionally lies upon me, the Prophet Muhammad said, that the one who intentionally lies upon me, let him take his seat and his place in the hellfire. So of course, when the Prophet spoke, there were a group of Sahaba who heard this from him. And all of them narrated this hadith. For example, Abu Huraira, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Umar, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Abu Musa al-Ashari, etc., etc. The wording is the same, but the Sahabi is different. All of the Sahaba heard this hadith. So the Muhaddithin, they consider every isnad, every Sahabi to be a separate hadith. To be a separate hadith. So this is, when we look at this number, some people create doubts that where are these ahadith today? Where is 1,000,000 hadith? Where are 100,000 hadith? If you were to combine all the books of hadith, it wouldn't reach this number. This is due to the ignorance of this point, that the muhaddithun, they meant isnad. So every text, if 10, 20, 30 Sahaba used to narrate them, they would consider this 30 ahadith. They would consider this text 30 ahadith. And why would he memorize, the second point, why would he memorize double the amount of non-authentic ahadith? And he says, I have memorized 100,000 authentic ahadith and I have memorized double that amount non-authentic ahadith. Why is that? This is so that he can warn the people from this non-authentic ahadith. One cannot know the truth except by knowing the falsehood, the opposite of it. So he memorized this ahadith in order to mention their defects and that they are unauthentic, so the Muslims can be saved from them. From them is a story regarding the great status that Imam Bukhari reached in his memorization, that two scholars or two students of knowledge, students of hadith, Hashid ibn Ismail and other than him, two scholars were with Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah in al-Basra. They were, all three of them were seeking knowledge in the city of al-Basra in Iraq. And he said, we used to go to the muhaddithin of Iraq or al-Basra and hear a hadith from them. These two students of hadith, they said that we used to write everything we used to hear. And we didn't see Imam Bukhari writing anything. We saw he would sit with us, attend, but he would not write anything. And this continued for several days. This continued for several days. So we found that extremely strange, and one day we told him, these two students of knowledge, these two scholars of hadith, told Imam al-Bukhari, that we see that you attend the sittings of the scholars of hadith and you do not write anything. So what are you doing in these sittings? So Imam Bukhari did not respond to them with anything, and this continued for 16 days. 16 days Imam Bukhari attended without writing anything. After the 16th day, he told them that you have verily tried to diminish my status, and he said that, narrate upon me that which you have written all these days, 16 days, the ahadith that you have written, narrated upon me from your books, read it upon me from your books. So these two students of hadith, they narrated upon him from their books what they have written this time frame of 16 days. And it was how many? 15,000 ahadith. 15,000 ahadith they had written from the scholars of Basra for a period of 16 days. And they narrated all of this upon him from his book. And they found mistakes in their books that Imam Bukhari was correcting from his memorization. He was correcting them from his memorization, that which they have written mistakenly in their books. Then he told them that, do you think I'm playing around? I'm wasting my time? Did you think that I'm playing around, wasting my time? So when he said that to him, and when they saw this, they said that we said that to each other, that this person will be from the Imam of the dunya. No one can reach above him in knowledge. All three of them are seeking knowledge. But when they saw this, they said this person will have a status higher than our status. He will reach a level that no one has reached. From the great stories that give proof to his great memorization is the story of when he entered Baghdad, Darus Salam, the capital of Iraq. And the muhaddithin, the scholars of Iraq or Baghdad, they heard a lot of Imam al-Bukhari. And they wanted to test him on his memorization. That if he's actually as they say he is in his memorization, or if he is weak. So they brought 10 people from the scholars of Hadith of Baghdad. 10 scholars of Hadith from Baghdad. And they gave each 10 of them 10 ahadith. Every person took 10 ahadith. And they told them to switch the text of this ahadith with the chains of narration of other ahadith, which is called al-Hadith al-Maqloob, something that is switched. So they took the text and fitted it upon another chain of narration. Took that chain of narration, fitted it upon this text. All 10 of them did this with every 10 hadith that they had. So a total of 100 ahadith. A total of 100 ahadith. So they came to a great sitting. Thousands of people were present in that sitting, and they wanted to test him. So one of them started reciting the hadith upon Imam al-Bukhari. When he heard the first hadith, he said, La a'rifu, I do not know it. Then the second hadith, La a'rifuhu. Third hadith, La a'rifuhu. After 3-4 hadith, they had a feeling that Imam Bukhari has understood that we are trying to test him. He has understood that we are trying to test him. So the first person recited his 10 ahadith. The second person recited his 10 ahadith. The third person until the last person recited 10 ahadith. A total of 100 ahadith. And every hadith Imam Bukhari said, La a'rifuhu. And I don't know this hadith with this text to be with this chain of narration. When they had finished, he returned to the first person who had recited the first 10 hadith, and he said, as for the first hadith, then it is such and such. The correct way is that it is with this isnad and this matan. As for the second hadith, then it is such and such. As for the third hadith, then it is such and such. Then he went to the second, third, until he corrected all 10 of them from his memory. This itself shows the great status of memorization that Imam Bukhari reached. And the scholars mentioned that the stranger thing, the strange thing is not that Imam Bukhari knows this ahadith with their chains and their texts. He is Hafiz, Imam al-Dunya. This is what he is known for. It is not strange that he knows 100. What is 100 hadith compared to 100,000 ahadith that he has memorized? It is not strange that he knows these texts with these chains of narration. The strange part is that in the same sitting, he corrected every single one of them with the same order that they had recited the hadith. That your first hadith is like this, your second hadith is like this, in one sitting. This is more stranger than him memorizing the ahadith with the right chains of narration and text. We mention these stories to show the great level of memorization that these A'immah reached and that Allah had blessed them with. And our memorization today, it cannot be compared to their memorization. There's no way that our memorization can be compared to them. So the people who create doubts, saying that they were people just like us, we memorize, we forget, we get mixed up, we leave off stuff. So it could have been possible with them. They also forgot, they also got mixed up, they also left off stuff. There's no way one can compare our memorization to their memorization. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala created them for this purpose and task. They were created to memorize this ahadith and to preserve it until the end of times. Then we come to his students. He has students that cannot be numerated. One cannot count them. He has students that cannot be numerated. And from his student was Imam al-Hafiz al-Kabir Salih ibn Muhammad al-Baghdadi. Salih ibn Muhammad al-Baghdadi, who is known by his laqab, by his nickname of Jazara, carrot. Jazara. Imam al-Hafiz Salih Jazara. He says that just in Baghdad alone, just in Baghdad, the capital of Iraq alone, I saw 20 or more than 20,000 students of knowledge, students of hadith, listening from him, writing hadith from him. Just in one sitting. 20,000 or more students of hadith, listening and writing from him. And from his famous, well-known students is Imam Muslim. From his famous and well-known students is Imam Muslim and Imam Tirmidhi and Abu Hatim and Abu Zur'a al-Raziyan, rahimahumullah. And this also shows that Islam, since its inception until this time, is preserved with a continuous chain of narration. As we will see in this Dora, that Imam Bukhari's student is Imam Muslim. Then you will see Imam Muslim's student is Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi. Then you will see their student is Nasai. It's a continuous chain of narration. There's no break in this chain. As far as the praise of the scholars upon Imam al-Bukhari, then it is something that is numerous, and we will only mention a few statements from them. From the praise is the statement of Ali ibn al-Madini, rahimahullah, his teacher, Imam al-Hafiz, the Imam of al-Ilal that we just mentioned, that leave it off, for he never saw anyone more knowledgeable than him in his lifetime. From them is a statement of his teacher also, Imam Ishaq ibn Rahuya, where he says that he ordered his students to write, said, "Uktubu an hadha shab." Write hadith, listen to hadith from Imam al-Bukhari. He told his other students to listen to hadith and write hadith from Imam al-Bukhari. فَلَوْ كَانَ فِي زَمَنِ الْحَسَنِ لَحْتَاجَ النَّاسِ إِلَيْهِ لِمَعْرِفَتِهِ بِالْحَدِيثِ وَفِقْهِ. Even if he were to be in the time of the Tabi'een, Al-Hasan al-Basri. Al-Hasan al-Basri is from the Sayyid al-Tabi'een, from the leaders of the Tabi'een. Even if he were alive in the time of the Tabi'een, the people would listen to him and write hadith from him due to his knowledge of hadith and fiqh. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, as we mentioned, he's also from his teachers. He says, "Ma akhrajat Khurasan mithl Muhammad ibn Ismail." That the great area of Khurasan, no scholar has come out of that area similar to status than Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah. وقال الترمذي, his student Imam al-Tirmidhi said, لم أرى بالعراق ولا بخراسان في معنى العلل والتاريخ ومعرفة الأسانيد عالم من محمد بن إسماعيل. That in the area of Iraq and Khurasan, in this vast area that was filled with muhaddithin at that time, I did not see anyone more knowledgeable about ilal, the hidden defects of hadith, and upon the biographies of the narrators of hadith, more knowledgeable than Imam al-Bukhari. And from the most famous sayings is the saying of Imam Muslim rahimahullah, his student, that he came to Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah and he told him that let me kiss you, O ya ustad al-ustadhin wa sayyid al-muhaddithin wa tabib al-hadith fi ilali. Let me kiss you, O scholar of the scholars, ustad al-ustadhin, and the leader of the muhaddithin, and the one who cures the hidden defects that are found in hadith. And Imam Muslim rahimahullah also said that لا يبغضك إلا حاسد وأشهد أنه ليس في الدنيا مثلك. That no one has enmity towards you or dislikes you or hates you except that he is a hasid, he's someone who has jealousy, who's an enemy of Islam and the Sunnah. And I give proof that there's no one in the world like you. And we say the same thing today, that no one looks down upon or speaks down upon or hates or dislikes Imam al-Bukhari except that he is a jealous enemy of Islam and the Sunnah. And the praise upon the scholars from his lifetime until today, it is innumerous that cannot be mentioned. As far as his death, then Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he passed away. He passed away in the year 256 after the Hijrah. He passed away in the year 256 in a town from the towns of the city of Samarkand, which is also in Uzbekistan. He was born in Bukhara, as we said, and he passed away in Samarkand, and specifically in a town from the towns of Samarkand, which is called Khartank. Khartank. So he passed away, rahimahullah, in this town, and he's buried there. And sadly, they have built a tomb, which is well known over his grave, that people visit. And we said he was born in 194 and he passed away in 256. So he lived for how many years? He lived for 62 years. He lived for 62 years. As far as his books and the knowledge that he left us, the Islamic nation, then he has several books in hadith and sciences. From the most famous of these books is, of course, As-Sahih, that we'll speak about in detail, Sahih al-Bukhari, and at-Tarikh al-Kabir, that we mentioned, that he has a book, a great book in which he has written the biographies of almost 15,000 narrators of hadith. And he also has Tarikh al-Awsat and Tarikh al-Saghir. He has 3 books on the biographies of the narrators of hadith. One is the largest one, at-Kabir, one is medium in size, al-Awsat, and one is al-Saghir. And he also has a book, ad-Du'afa al-Saghir, in which he has mentioned the biographies only of the weak narrators. He has collected the weak narrators of hadith. And he has the book of Al-Qira'ah Khalf al-Imam, reciting Surah Al-Fatiha behind the Imam, which was from the shi'ar of the Ahl-Hadith, from the signposts, from the signs of the Ahl-Hadith, that they will recite Fatiha behind the Imam. And he has a book, Juz Raful Yadain fi Salah, to raise the hands in the Salah when going to ruku, and from it, which was also from the science of the Ahlul Hadith. And he has a book, Al-Adab Al-Mufrad. Al-Adab Al-Mufrad, which is well known, I assume, in these lands. And it is called, it is called Al-Mufrad because this Kitab Al-Adab, which is present in his Sahih Al-Bukhari. From the books of Sahih Al-Bukhari is Kitab Al-Adab, the books of manners and morals, in which he has narrated several hadith. And he has also written a separate book on Adab, to distinguish these 2 books. The one that he has written separately is called Al-Adab Al-Mufrad, the separate Adab book. And he has several other books in the sciences of hadith. And as we said, the most important of his books are 2 books, Sahih al-Bukhari and Tarikh al-Kabir. These are the 2 most important books of his. And by this we have finished an extremely brief biography of this great Imam who's known as Imam al-Dunya, and we have tried to focus on aspects that relate to hadith and science, and that will help someone understand how this book Sahih al-Bukhari came about and why it reached this status amongst the Muslims. And I guess we take a break here, inshallah, and we'll continue after that. No. No.
And I don't know, obviously I'm not technically, but I've heard a lecture on Bukhari, and they said that when he was a child, he lost his vision. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a story that's mentioned, if you can go to the first slide.
So they said
and his mother, rahimahullah, he made dua for him and his eyesight came back. The scholars have mentioned these stories in their books.
Would that have a lot to do with his memorization?
I mean, if the story is true, then of course it gives proofs that this was from the specific blessings of Allah Ta'ala upon him. Some scholars have mentioned that this story is not true. Either way, there are several other stories that we have mentioned and several other authentic stories that give proof to his great status and in memorization. No.
One more.
No.
So there's a story, I think it's Imam Bukhari, that he had some money and he was on a ship. I don't know if that's him or someone else. That 70,000 dinar, and then someone said that he tried to take his money,
Mm.
and he said that, I don't know if this is true, I'm just throwing it out there. He said that to take this money and he said, he blamed him, that he stole from him, like he turned it around on him, and then eventually that what he did was, just to sum up the story, he threw the money away in the ocean or the sea or whatever, and then the guy asked him later, where's the money, what did you do, because I know you did it, because he told the captain or whatever. And then he said, no, the reason I threw away because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't called out a liar, because of not the money that I'm worried about. I'm worried about my authenticity of my writing of it. Is that correct?
Allahu Alam. I haven't heard it. Naam, yeah.
Sheikhna, with the fitna with Abu Hatim al-Zura, the issue of the Khalq al-Quran,
No.
when he wrote the book Khalq Af'al al-Ibad, did he write that book after the fitna and it became popular, and that's what made him, like after that fitna?
I mean,
like, why did he
as we said, this was a very extremely summarized biography of this great Imam. And there are some issues that they should be discussed in proper environments with people who are able to grasp and understand these issues. So since the brother mentioned it, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah was tested like Allah tests all his beloved servants. Like Allah tested his prophets and messengers, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah was also tested. And the brother is pointing towards an issue that occurred in the later part of his life, where after he wrote the book Khalq Af'al al-Ibad, which is published and well known, some of the great scholars of that era from Nisabur, where Imam Muslim is from, they used some of the material in the book against him. And there's a background to the story that inshallah in that I hope is a benefit, which is that Imam Bukhari from his travels, as we said, he entered Nisabur. He entered the city of Nisabur. From the great or the foremost muhaddithin, the scholars of hadith of Nisabur, was Imam Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Dhuhli. Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Dhuhli. He was from the foremost of the scholars of hadith, Imam Hafiz, Jabal, mountain of Nisabur. Imam Muslim rahimahullah was from his students. And Imam Bukhari is also considered to be from one of his students. And when Imam Bukhari made the intention of traveling to Nisabur, Imam Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Dhuhli ordered his students to welcome Imam Bukhari as he is deserving of being welcomed, due to his love for him and his status. So they traveled far outside this city to welcome him. Traveled far outside of the city and welcomed him as if someone welcomes a great caliphate or ruler of that time. And they brought him to Nisabur. And his majlis or his gathering of hadith was formed, and he started narrating a hadith. After a short while, and this is the benefit we want to come to, is that the students of Imam Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Dhuhli, they left him and they went to Imam al-Bukhari to hear hadith from him. One by one they started leaving and attending the halaqah, the circle of Imam al-Bukhari. And when Imam Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Dhuhli rahimahullah saw that his halaqah is getting diminished, as no one is free of mistakes, and it was a test, hasad, jealousy came between them. And this just proves that even these great scholars of Islam, they were not protected from this jealousy that shaitan creates between brothers of faith and Muslims. Rather, the scholars say that da'ul ulama al-hasad, that the disease of the scholars is hasad, jealousy. And there's a big issue that kalamul aqrani yutwa wala yurwa, which is not explicit like this. What it means is that the scholars of hadith, the students of hadith who lived in the same time period, who lived with each other, their statements in criticizing, disparaging others is not to be accepted, because this is in most cases from jealousy and hasad. But of course, as we said, this is not explicitly like this. Imam Yahya ibn Ma'in, rahimahullah, the Imam of Jarrah, he disparaged narrators, and we have to accept this disparage. But in many cases, it has something to do with jealousy. So jealousy occurred between them to a point that Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, was tested, and Imam Muhammad Yahya al-Dhuhli, who was the Imam of that area, he ordered Imam Bukhari to leave Nisabur. And this book was used as a proof, or some of the material in this book was used as a proof against him that he does not have proper aqidah in a specific issue. And he was tested, and he left Nisabur, and in this test he passed away in Samarkand when he was removed from these countries and he had nowhere to go. And this is the test that Allah tested with him, and this is expiation of his sins and a raise in his ranks and his status. So this is a benefit that jealousy occurred between these great scholars. But from the adl and insaf of the great muhaddithin, their righteousness and their adherence to the truth, they did not let this jealousy come between them. It's not like today when we see these kind of matters. Imam Bukhari narrated on Imam Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Dhuhli in his Sahih. Even with this, even the test that he had to face, he still narrated hadith on this great muhaddith. But he did not name him properly, or did not say his name properly. So sometimes he would say Haddathana Muhammad, yani I heard from Muhammad. Sometimes he would use his great grandfather's name. And the scholars of hadith, nothing is hidden from them. So they found out who this is. But this shows that they did not let these issues come between the religion. That Imam Muhammad Yahya al-Dhuhli was from the great memorizers of hadith, thiqat, a'imma, huffaz, and Imam Bukhari heard hadith from him, and he narrated hadith upon him. And Imam Muslim, rahimahullah, he was tested because he was from the foremost students of Imam Muhammad bin Yahya al-Dhuhli. He is from his city. So when this fitna occurred, he did not know who to go to. He loved and respected, as we just said, Imam al-Bukhari. And Muhammad Yahya al-Dhuhli is his foremost teacher. So he didn't narrate on any of them in his Sahih. Imam Muslim, as will come, even though he was from the students of Imam Bukhari, some people ask, why did he not narrate hadith on Imam al-Bukhari? So this is from the reasons that he did not take any side, he did not narrate hadith on either of them. Now,
so can you clarify what Rahmiya is?
it's a Farsi Persian name. It's a Persian name. I guess if someone here is well versed in Persian, they can inform us. These muhaddithin lived in that area, so some of the names are Persian names. So it has a meaning, but I do not remember the meaning right now.
You said the wheel, you mentioned about the wheel. The wheel was invented, but maybe not popular.
Okay, I don't know about inventions. I mean, the muhaddithin, their travels were on foot. Most of their travels, they were people who did not have money. So even to get on a camel or any other modes of transportation, if they exist, it costs money. And they did not have any money. Imam Abu Hatim al-Razi, from the great imams and huffaz of that era, from the students of Imam al-Bukhari, and from the teachers of Imam Muslim, who passed away in the year 277, from Tehran, as we said, right. He had a rihla in a travel when he left Rai to seek knowledge, ilm al-hadith, in which he did not return to Rai for 20 years. 20 years he was seeking knowledge and seeking hadith. And he says that when I left Rai, I started counting my steps. I counted my steps. So he said I reached, I don't remember the number, how many thousands, after which I got tired and left counting. After which I got tired and left counting. So there were people who, even if such modes were present, it was not available to them. Yeah. So I guess we stop. We stop, and we'll inshallah start with the book Sahih al-Bukhari inshallah in the next session.